Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. Scavenger's Introductory by YesOWhat38. Welcome to Point Indy, the only permanent settlement within 10 miles of the outskirts of Indianapolis. After checking in with the Border Patrol at the wall, you should have received a map of the region and of the city of Indianapolis. The list of guidelines is complementary to these items and is important for survival if you plan to salvage the city ruins. 1. Make sure essentials are packed. 1. A flashlight, salt, a watch, non-perishable goods lasting around a week, gas mask, a lighter, extra batteries, and a candle that is neither black nor red. These can be bought or rented at the Indy Trades Co. 2. Be alert. Indy is a hostile place uninhabited for almost a decade now. Floors and woodworks are rotting and easy to give in. Buildings are prone to collapse or become shelters to animals. Sewers in underground area have poor or no ventilation, resulting in dead air. 3. Watch for warning signs. Creatures often leave signs on accident. These often include corpses of humans or animals with no evidence of predator, abnormally clean areas of ruin, abnormal perception of time, abstractions of reality, and people claiming they're from a nearby settlement that's not there. 3A. If a warning sign is detected, light your candle first, then turn off your electric lighting. If you're inside, move calmly and slowly unless you're being pursued, C3B. Move to a more secured area, a windowless room, alleyway, or wooden area. Once there, surround yourself with salt and keep the candle inside. Do not leave the circle until no warning signs have shown themselves for at least an hour on your watch. Do not trust your internal clock. 3B. If you're being pursued, feel free to run or flee. Make sure to throw salt behind you as you run, and do not stop running until the warning signs stop. Then proceed with instructions listed in 3A. Wait for 2 hours instead of 1, and do not spend the night over at the city. If this occurs during the night or evening, stay in your circle and stay awake until the next day. 4. If you're staying the night, which is not recommended by any means, seek an enclosed shelter with 2 options of escape. Surround yourself, bed, or wherever you're sleeping with salt. Do not light the candle while sleeping for obvious reasons. You should stay in your shelter until daybreak, unless you are pursued, in which case follow 3B in your shelter, and return the room to its original state before leaving. Good luck! We don't know how long we've been trapped here, and only one of us brought our phone. The man and woman over the phone screamed almost simultaneously. It must have been a while, because in the 15 minutes it took for the rescue team to get into the hotel, we found the emaciated woman gnawing the limbs off the freshly killed man. I Loved Cut Your Hair by YeetmanXD69. My hair was beyond unruly. It was damn near sporting a mullet, so I decided a haircut was long overdue, especially since it was mid-July. I was sweating my ass off with my hair being this long. When my day off at the shop rolled around, I decided it was a good time to look for a cheap cut. I drove past several high-end haircut places, but due to insignificant funds, I didn't really feel like paying the price. In the long run, I wish I had. Since I didn't have anything else to do, I drove around for quite some time. I stopped for lunch at a gas station. Yeah, I'm that cheap. Eventually, I stumbled across a sign. Haircut, $1.50. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a terrible idea, and I agree. However, I've never been one who cares about personal appearance and upkeep, so the prospect of a haircut this cheap greatly appealed to me. I wasn't scared of someone giving me a really horrible hairstyle, as evident by my awfully long, greasy hair I currently sported. The only detail that mattered was the frugality of it. I wish I had known just how bad it would be. Then maybe I would have paid the extra bucks for a decent hairstyle. You get what you pay for, after all. I pulled into the parking lot that was littered with potholes, just like everywhere else in the city, my car bouncing around. I shut off the engine and strolled inside. There was a white front desk with a woman standing behind it. Silky blonde hair sprouting out of her porcelain skin. I'd estimate she was in her mid-40s. She stared at me, her green eyes bloodshot. I already felt kind of sketchy. "Hey, I saw the sign outside for a $1.50 haircut," I said. "I love to cut your hair," she said, breathing heavy, her eyes unblinking. Something about the way she said that threw me off. I gulped and nervously backtracked. Actually, that's okay. I just realized I'm late for..." My words trailed off as she leaped over the counter with brutal force. Before I could react, I was pinned to the floor, a rag soon covering my face. When I came to, I felt a scalding hot pain on my scalp. My hair was being washed, but the water was nearly boiling. I tried to scream in agony, but my face was covered. I tried to wrestle myself free, but I was tied to the chair. Tears filled my eyes as the water burned my scalp. At long last, she had finished and grabbed a towel, yanking my head about, violently drying it. She then pushed a button, and I heard some mechanical whirling as my seat began to unrecline. I stared helplessly in the mirror at my bound body, terrified of what was to come next. I kept waiting for a giant set of clippers or something to be revealed, but nothing. It was far worse. It happened so quick I could hardly react, not that I'd been able to stop it anyways, but before I knew it, I could feel her warm, putrid breath on my neck. I looked up into the mirror and she leaned down and took a huge bite out of my hair, ripping it from my scalp. This continued. I was in agony as she tore the hair from my head with her teeth. And worst of all, she was eating it. I saw her munching down like it was a 5-star meal. I wanted to vomit, though I feared she may eat that too. She chomped and yanked until there was no hair on my bleeding scalp. I blacked out. When I woke up, I was laying on the concrete right in front of that store. I clumsily got up and sprinted to my car without turning back. Disobeying all traffic laws, I headed to the police station. I haphazardly parked my car and dashed inside, flinging the door open. Panting, I got a couple of stares from the officers inside. I looked horrible with my bleeding scalp. "You've got to help me. I tried to get my hair cut. The sign said a haircut for $1.50. "Sorry, that's out of our jurisdiction. We can't help you," an officer chimed. What? Out of your jurisdiction? I'm not even that far. I'm within the city limits. "Sir, you need to calm down." "Are you serious? I was just attacked and you're telling me there's nothing you can do about it?" "Afraid not. We're going to have to ask you to leave," he said with a glare. I hightailed it out of there. Clearly something was going on here. Were those cops somehow on the lady's payroll? It didn't make any sense. What the hell was going on? I drove home in silence. Normally, I blast music at unreasonable volumes out of my nearly blown-out speakers, but I was in no mood. When I arrived home, I made a decision. Fine, If the cops wouldn't help me, I'd have to take matters into my own hands. I rummaged through my drawer in my nightstand and fished out my pistol. To be perfectly honest, I didn't really have a plan. I just knew that I had to do something. My head still ached in pain. I got in my car and raced back to that awful place. The sign parading the cheap haircuts waved in the breeze as if torturing me when I whipped into the parking lot. I grabbed the pistol out of the passenger's seat and put it in my jacket pocket, then stepped out of the car. The sun had set now. The lights were still on the place. The fluorescent hummed as I carefully stepped inside. This time, she wasn't behind the counter. No one was. I crept around like a soldier, waving my gun around, carefully walking past the empty chairs. I spotted a curtain, no light coming from inside. I made my way over there. The gun in my hand shook as my body recoiled in fear. I held my breath and yanked back the curtain. In the shadows, I was greeted by something unexpected. A figure stood there, completely covered in long hair, brown just like mine. It was as if it was wearing a suit made of hair. In a blink of an eye, it charged towards me. Without hesitating, I fired my pistol, 4 shots. It crumpled to the floor below me, pink goo oozing out of the gunshot wounds. I decided I better get out of there fast, and if those cops were really in on whatever this was, they surely would be after me soon. More pink goo oozed from the creature. Normally, I like the color pink, but this was really a gross color, almost flesh-like. I could see some movement as I turned around, once again sprinting to my car. As I got to the door, I heard a thump. I didn't turn around, just kept going. By the time I got home, I was incredibly paranoid. I kept expecting that thing or the cops to find me. I don't know which was worse. I decided to lay low for a week while I plotted my next move. That plan was absolutely cut short 5 days later. As I pondered what to do, I peered out the window. Staring at me far across the street was me? Someone or something that resembled me down to the last detail stood on the sidewalk across the road and just stared at me. Oh God, was I going to be replaced? No way I could allow that to happen. I popped open my closet and grabbed some ammo, sprinting out the front door with my pistol in hand. I ran towards my look-alike, only he was already gone. Yet again, I hopped into my worn-out car and sped towards the cursed store. As soon as I started my engine, red and blue lights flashed at the end of my cove. I floored it, not looking back, the cops following closely behind. I was not going to let them replace me. As I whipped corners, driving one-handed, trying to duck the cops, I noticed something in my rearview mirror. Sitting in the back of one of the cop cars was my clone, just staring in front of him. What was their plan? Why were they trying to replace me? I pondered this as the cops gained on me, one on each side, they continuously ramming into the side of my vehicle, trying to run me off the road. I didn't let up, however, but they noticed. I saw 2 of them pull out pistols. I ducked and slammed on my brakes. Several shots went off ahead of me. The cop cars swerved out of control. I whipped the steering wheel around and turned the corner down the side of the street so fast I nearly tipped my car over. I continued this pace all the way to the hair salon, if you can even call it that. I slammed my door and hurried towards the salon door. This time the lights were off. I yanked the handle, but the door wouldn't budge. A few seconds later, the lights kicked on. I heard the lock in the door click. It swing open as I pulled with all my might. That couldn't be good. Rounding the corner towards the desk was a woman once again. "I love to cut your hair." "Is that the only thing you know how to say? You'll pay for this," I said, waving my pistol towards her. She didn't budge. Bang. I fired off a shot. I hit her square in the forehead, blood seeping from the wound. She crumpled to the floor in an instant, pink goo spurting out from underneath the desk like a geyser. Before I could even react, however, I heard movement behind me. I felt a throbbing pain on the back of my head as I turned around. I was met with the two cops wearing bloody clothes and scowls on their faces. The one held a police baton in his hand. Without time to think, he hit me again. The two men grabbed me and yanked me into the car, cuffing my hands together. Where was my clone, I wondered. They didn't bother blindfolding me, which I assume was a bad sign. After just 5 minutes of driving, we arrived at an old warehouse, of course. The battered cops jolted me out of the car angrily and pushed me inside the metal doors, slamming it shut behind us. Inside, I spotted several cages, mostly empty except for one. It had a woman inside. Her scalp was like mine, torn and bloodied, though the blood had dried. Little strands of hair attempted to grow out of this barren scalp. She looked up at me, and I met her gaze. I recognized that face, though dirtier with blood, dirt, and sweat. The barber shop. It was the same lady. Oh, God. They stuffed me into that cage faster than I could comprehend, though I tried to protest. Once that steel door slammed, I turned towards the lady in the cage. Why are we here? So they can feed, she said. How long have you been here? What's your name? I don't know. I lost count, but several weeks by this point. And my name's Jessica. Frank, I said. Jesus, I killed one, I think. Those things, it looked just like you. I shot in the head and it turned into some kind of slime or something. Somewhere out there is one that looks just like me. You didn't kill it. What? That's what I thought too. I thought I had killed one, but it put itself back together. I stared. There's gotta be some way. So you're telling me that the one I killed is still out there? Yes. We just gotta find a way to kill them then. Maybe if we completely destroy that pink stuff before it gets put back together, or maybe they're vulnerable while feeding. That sounds great and all, but how are we going to do that from inside these cages? We're trapped in here. I'm working on it. She sulked. I don't think she was convinced by my escape plan or lack thereof. Truthfully, I don't know how we were going to get out of here. How did they get you anyways? I said. My best friend. So, shouldn't she be in here now? Where is she? I mean, the real her. Yeah, she was here, but they moved her. I don't know why, but she used to be in the cage you're in now. My mind began to think of the worst possible scenarios. Surely if they removed her, it meant they didn't need her anymore. They probably disposed of her. I tried to keep my composure. I didn't want the lady to give up hope. I'm sure she still held on to the idea that her friend was still alive somewhere. We'll find her, don't worry, I said, though I did worry. It's fine, you don't have to pretend. She's probably long gone by now. I didn't know what to say, so I changed the subject. None of this makes any sense. I just don't understand these things. Why do they need to keep feeding on us? I've had a lot of time to think about this. I think at first they need the hair to create, well, the clones, to reproduce, I guess. Then after that, it seems like they need the hair to live, because I've only seen one clone for each person. They haven't made more clones of me, and I've been here for a while. So maybe if we deprive them of our hair, then they'll die? No, I doubt it. Can't they just find someone else to feed on? And that's what I think happened to my friend. She must not have been useful for them anymore. Good point. I pondered what to do. It really seemed that we were all out of options. But what about those cops? I don't understand their role in this. They bleed like real people, so why are they helping these hair-eating freaks? That I don't know. I believe it goes deeper than we think. And if that's the case, we are truly fucked. Do they feed us in here? Yeah, once a day. A bowl of scrambled eggs and a glass of carrot juice. What the fuck? I assume it has something to do with hair growth, she shrugged. So, what's your plan, genius? Hey, watch the attitude. She didn't respond. Sorry, I'm sure you're beyond irritated being stuck in here. I wish I knew what to do, she nodded. Wait, I've seen it in movies. We can escape our handcuffs by breaking our fingers. She didn't look amused. And how are we going to break our fingers? Okay, maybe not. I scanned the room, looking for something, anything to help us escape. The room was dimly lit, so it was difficult to see. All of a sudden, I heard the screeching of that metal door. Light poured into the warehouse. In that light, I caught a glimpse of something way in the back. There was another person in here. An old man. He was caged too. He looked to be in his 80s. His frail body clearly was on the decline. I reckon he had little time left on this earth. I quickly shot my head back forward when I heard the metal locks click. The woman next to me, her cage was being opened by those cops. Wait, no, what are you doing? She screamed, and I stared in horror as I dragged her away. She kicked and screamed. Wait, take me instead. She's fine. She has lots of hair left. It was to no avail. The metal door slammed once again, enveloped me in darkness. I felt hopeless and afraid. What was I to do now? How would I help her? But then I remembered my newfound discovery in the midst of all this chaos. The warehouse wasn't as empty as I had thought. There was another in here, trapped with me. As my daughter and I began driving down the empty, dark road, I told her that we'd play a game where she could close her eyes and count every bump in the road that our car went over. 45, 46, 47, she counted gleefully. I sighed deeply as I saw the hundreds of lifeless bodies that still littered the road ahead of us. The House That Never Sleeps by GrimmInDarkness. Hello and welcome to another episode of Shadows and Secrets. I'm your host, Lenora Black. A female voice speaks into a desk microphone. Today, we're looking into the mysterious disappearances and murders of the Ashcroft estate. Eerie music plays in the background as she continues. The Ashcroft estate sits high in the ominous mountains of Dursted Rise, where the first murder was found in 1836. A body of an unidentified 28-year-old female was found at the bottom of the grand staircase. The design modeled after the grand staircase of the Bricking Hall. Could this have cursed it in some way? Lenora leaned on her desk, elbows propping up as she closed in on the microphone. The bodies of each victim were always found in unusual places of the estate and in odd positions, almost as if they were posing for a painting for Jacques-Louis David. the artist behind the death of Merritt. She leans back, looking up at the ceiling. Which comes to my special announcement, she smiled. I will be moving into the Ashcroft estate. I'm hoping to solve these murders and disappearances. I hope you will wish me good luck as I continue to update you during the process. This has been Lenore Black, your host of Shadows and Secrets, signing off. She took off her headphones and placed them down. Lenore stopped the recording and had to admit she was most definitely nervous. Who wouldn't be? After all, she was going to be living in a place where people had died or disappeared. Lenore looked at her packed-up boxes, knitting her brows in tired frustration, exhaling a sigh. It was time to call the movers. By the time Lenore was on the road, she was sure the move hive was already halfway there. Trying to obey traffic laws to get to the estate, Lenore didn't want to be pulled over. If that occurred, it put her further behind schedule. Passing the signs to the Dursted Rise Mountains, she gripped the steering wheel, knowing there was no turning back now. From here, it was a straight shot to the Ashcroft estate. Lenore was expecting a winding road that twisted around to the top. Instead, it was up various hills, one after the other, then through an open gate. When the Ashcroft estate came into view, she let out an audible gasp. The estate was breathtaking with its brick, stone veneer siding, and prairie windows. She knew that such a beautiful place was full of so much pain and grief. Parking behind the moving van, Lenore got out. Walking up to the window, she peered in and saw no one. Where did they go? Lenore had the only key to get inside. Did they by chance leave it here in a hurry? Clicking her tongue, Lenore sighed, digging the key out of her purse. She walked towards the front door, keys in hand, and unlocked it. Pushing it open, Lenore stepped inside, feeling around. She found a light switch, flipping it on. Above her, lights flickered to life, even if they were dim. Shutting the white oak door, her heels clicked on the marble flooring as she crossed the room towards the foyer. The air felt heavy and smelled of mothballs and mildew. As she stood there, Lenore closed her eyes, taking in the atmosphere. Something about this place was off. If there was too many presences together in one place, all of them trying to find an exit, but were being kept here. Whatever it was keeping them here had to be the one behind it. At least that was one of her theories. That instead of a killer, that it was a malevolent force which murdered them. Leaving the foyer, Lenore searched for a room to stay in. She'd wait till morning and bring her belongings inside. Finding a room with an ensuite, Lenore settled in, going to sleep. During the night, she dreamed of walking through one of the many halls. It felt oddly bigger than it had when she walked inside. Or had she gotten smaller? Regardless, she kept moving forward. Looking at her hand, Lenore lifted a lantern which lit the way. She took soft, careful steps, not wanting to make a sound. Fearing if Lenore did, it would waken or alert someone. Her shuddering breath showed how cold it was. Wooden floorboards creaked under her bare feet, walking on a faded floral rug runner leading down a hallway to her right. At the end where she was walking stood someone. When raising her lantern, the light shone on them. It didn't feel right. Lenore willed herself to turn back, but her legs kept moving forward. Getting closer and closer, the face became more visible to her. Before seeing it clearly, she woke up in a cold sweat, rubbing her shaky hands over her face. What she did get to see about that person was dark circles, pale, lifeless iris, and sunken cheeks. The scent of death was heavy in the air. Their heavy stare on her weighed her down. That was when she woke up. If she hadn't, would they have meant death for her? Getting out of bed, Lenore walked into the ensuite to splash water on her face. Drying her face with a towel, she looked up into the mirror, stalling backwards in surprise. Instead of her own reflection staring back at her, it was a little girl, the one who she believed to be seen through the eyes of. They stared at each other for a while, then the little girl wrote on the other side of the fogged-up glass. Lenore cautiously stepped closer, reading the message. "He will be after you soon. Let me help." Who exactly was the he she was talking about? Did she mean the cloaked figure? Lenore gulped, licking her dry lips. She knew that this would be difficult to do on her own. Lenore nodded, accepting the help which had been offered to her. The ghost of the girl then wrote another message, telling Lenore to find the study. There should be some unusual information on the person she saw. She wasn't sure how this would help, but Lenore agreed to look. The study was covered in cobwebs with thick layers of dust on the books, shelves, and desk. Walking over to the wooden desk, Lenore began looking through some documents. Glancing over them, there wasn't much to go off of until she found one incident report. On April 13, 1840, the body of the Ashcroft Estate's gardener was found face down in the fountain. This was around early morning during winter, so the water was practically frozen. He was found wearing a dark cloak with the hood up. Death was caused by blunt force trauma to the back of the head. When they removed his body, it was still warm. He hadn't been dead long as the blood also clotted, nor did it have time to drip into the water. Lenore wondered if the body had been moved there. Where had the Ashcroft's gardener been killed before being placed inside the fountain? It was like playing a game of Clue. Since there was no murder weapon found, it would be hard to figure out who did it. Why the gardener? Under the coroner's report was a file dated December 5th, 1836. Opening up, Lenore read the report. In the dead of night, a housekeeper reported screaming and sounds of struggling from an upstairs bedroom. Around midnight, the same housekeeper found the dead body of a 28-year-old woman at the bottom of the stairs. Rope burn marks were found around her neck. The person was identified as the daughter of an Ashcroft employee. Lenore lowered the file in her hands. Could she have been related to the gardener? The door to the study creaked, causing her to look up. Nothing was there, but she felt as if someone was watching her. The presence stood there for a while before slamming the door shut, causing Lenore to jump. What was that? Not that she could normally see all spirits in the first place. This one didn't want to be seen. Part of Lenore wanted to go after while her common sense screamed no. Laying the file down next to the other report, she compared them. If he indeed was her father, he must have found out who had murdered her. In turn, that person must have silenced him. Lenore looked through the rest of the desk. She was looking for something, anything to give her a hint. Maybe information about the owner of the estate or another death that was recorded. When Lenore came across the locked drawer, she grabbed the letter opener and popped it open. Inside was a bloody paperweight and a rope. These are without a doubt the murder weapons. If she had to guess, the very first owner of Ashcroft must have been the one to kill the young woman and her father, the gardener. Then the spirits must have got back at him by taking his daughter's life, along with the rest of his family. Anyone else who owned this house or came to investigate became cursed. thus ending their lives one after another. How could Lenore stop the gardener and his daughter from killing more people? She couldn't exactly bring the old Ashcroft owner to justice since they probably already got him. Unless the men escaped before they could. If that was the case, then she would have to gather all the evidence so she could start a posthumous trial. All she had to do was gather the murder weapons and the coroner's reports. Taking off her robe, she picked up the items in the drawer and tied it up. With a bundle in one arm, Lenore picked up the 2 files on the desk. She made her way to the study door and opened it. Looking down each end of the hallway, Lenore swiftly walked down the right side, making her way to the bedroom. She needed to call someone, but who? Lenore was not particularly close to anyone. Maybe the realtor? Digging through her purse, she found a business card for a man who sold her the house. Picking up her phone from the nightstand, she dialed the number and waited as it rang. The sound of a groggy sigh emitted from the other end. "Miss Black, do you have any idea what time it is?" "I apologize, Mr. White, but I don't know who else to turn to." "Then what is the issue?" "I believe I figured out who the murderer of the Ashcroft estate is." There was a brief silence between the two. "Mr. White?" "Stay right where you are, Miss Black, and I will be right there." The call ended and Lenore stared at her phone screen. An echoing sound of someone knocking on glass made her turn to look at the vanity. The little girl motioned to her before writing a message on the glass. "Don't trust him." She made her way over to the vanity. "Why shouldn't I trust him?" Lenore questioned. The little girl frowned and answered, "That man isn't who he appears to be." Could it be that this man was the late Ashcroft himself? Anxiety filled her mind as it raced with thoughts about what to do next. Lenore needed to get out to somewhere safe, a place that the man didn't know about. Looking at the little girl in the mirror, she asked, "Do you have a favorite hiding place?" The little girl's face brightened, nodding. "Let me show you the way." The hiding place that the little girl had taken Lenore to is an entrance to a crawl space. Taking a shaky breath, she slipped inside, making her way through. It began as a narrow space and opened. Using her phone's flashlight, she could see cobwebs and wires. A few items littered the floor that looked like they belonged to a child. This must have been where the little girl used to come to play by herself. Walking through a bit more, Lenore could hear the front door open. Was the Mr. White here already? He should have been further away, at least an hour. "Miss Black, I'm here. Where are you?" he asked, walking into the foyer, something hidden behind his back. She peeked through the cracks in the walls and lowered her phone light. Was he here to kill her? Now Lenore knew he was the one who had killed the gardener and his daughter. He was going to silence her for good. She had to keep moving because the longer Lenore waited around, the closer he would get to finding her. As she rounded the corner, Lenore stopped dead in her tracks at what she saw before her. There, slumped in the corner of the room, a piece of its skull cracked, was a skeleton in a yellow dress. Blonde hair was still attached to the scalp. Lenore covered a hand over her mouth in shock. Had Mr. White hunted his own daughter for being a witness to the murders he committed? Like TV static, the little girl appeared next to her own skeleton and looked up at Lenore sullenly. "I'm so sorry this happened to you." she told the little girl, who motioned down another path of the crawl space. "If you keep going that way, you'll see an exit that leads outside a hole in the side of the house, with a rose bush blocking it." Lenore nodded. "Thank you," she whispered, and with her items in tow, she went the way that was shown to her. After walking for a bit, she was met with a rose bush and a hole in the side of the house. Crawling on all fours, she went through. Noticing the door was left wide open, Lenore took the opportunity to shut it. Using something nearby, she blocked the door from being opened. Running up to her car, she noticed that the tires were slashed, along with the moving truck. Going over to Mr. White's car, she tried the handle, opening it up, and searching for the keys. Banging on the front door made her jump as she saw the keys in the tiny tray in the front gear shift. Pressing the button, Lenore started the car and backing up. Mr. White cursed as he lifted the engineer's hammer in his hands and began smashing through the door. A wet hand placed itself onto his shoulder and then another. Mr. White slowly turned and looked at the decayed face of his gardener, who screamed into his face before throwing him. As he hit the stairs, Mr. White looked up to where the gardener's daughter stood, her neck and limbs twisted in unnatural angles, letting out a pained wail. Eyes widening, the man crawled away on all fours until he was right in front of his own daughter. "Eris, sweetheart." Mr. White smiled until he saw her pick up the hammer that he dropped from his hands when the gardener threw him. Eris raised it high above her head before letting it slam down into his head. A sickening, wet crunch echoed in the air, followed by a thick, screeching spelt sound, red chunks flying against the floor and nearby wall. Lenore gripped the steering wheel tightly as she focused on the road. She would stop in the hotel to rest for the night and call the police in the morning. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Shadows and Secrets. I'm your host, Lenore Black. Today, I want to talk to you about my experiences while living in the Ashcroft estate and the mysterious realtor, Mr. White. For the first time, I will take live callers. Caller number 1, you're on the air. There was a silent pause, so she laughed it off. No need to be shy. Who are you and where are you from? There was a crackling on the other end. Hello, Miss Black. Lenore froze. It couldn't be. He was dead. She was sure of it. Who is this? You know exactly who I am, Miss Black. I do hope you will visit soon. When a noise during an investigation led me to panic fire into a suspect's closet, I was horrified after opening it to find the prone form of a small boy. Don't worry, my partner assured me with a smirk, before placing a realistic-looking water pistol in the child's grip. You had no way of knowing it was just a toy. Rules for Night Shift in Greenhouse 14B by Asdras13. Report recovered from confidential archives of Dr. Silvio Blanchette Industries. Anomalous species selection. I've always heard rumors about Greenhouse 14B. They say after 1996's fire, the place has been definitively closed. However, last week I received a strange summons without letterhead, requesting technical presence at the place between the 3rd and the 9th of April. When I arrived, there was no one in the greenhouse, just a clipboard with my name in a brown envelope. Inside, I found instructions that I copied below. I didn't Sign nothing. I had no choice. If you're reading this, you'll probably be next. Excerpt from Field Diary of Coach LGP, who disappeared on April 12th. If you have received this instruction sheet, it's because you've been assigned to the night shift in Greenhouse 14B. Strictly follow the rules below. Don't try to improvise. Don't try to understand. Just comply. 1. Entry time. Enter the sector between 6:40 p.m. and 6:55 p.m. Never arrive at 7 p.m. sharp. This marks the beginning of underground activity. If you arrive at this time, don't go in, don't knock, leave and accept what you see. 2. Species identification. Ignore any plants that are not cataloged. They are not there by mistake, but they do not belong to you. Don't photograph, don't write down, and above all, don't name any of them. 3. Automatic watering can. The system will activate at 10:13 p.m. You must be outside the greenhouse this very minute. Water is not just water, and what it feeds on is not just flora. 4. Whispers between the sheets. If you hear sounds similar to whispers, do not approach the plants of tropical origin. Cover your ears and take a deep breath. Resist the temptation to respond, as they learn from your words. 5. The white flower. If you find a white flower opening out of season, it is calling you. Ignore. She doesn't feel it. She just repeats. If it is facing you, keep your eyes down and return to the center aisle without rushing. 6. The shadow in the glasses. If an humanoid figure appears outside the greenhouse, do not call it back. Whoever it was, she is no longer alive and she must not recognize you. If you recognize it, pretend you do not recognize it. 7. Alarm at 3:33 a.m. This alarm is not part of the system. When it rings, turn off your flashlight and hide under the mental table in section C. Remain still until the song stops. No matter what you hear, do not leave before absolute silence. 8. Exit only. Leave when the clock says 4 a.m. sharp. Not before, not after. If the gate is ajar before then, you should not go through it. Wait. It will close on its own. Trust it. If you're unable to follow one of these rules above, use the emergency radio in the northeast corridor of the greenhouse and clearly pronounce, "I require extra filtration via Protocol Z41. The team will know what to do. If no one responds within 13 seconds, turn off the radio, write your name in the black notebook, and don't touch anything else. You are not here to save the plants. You are here to stop something in them from escaping. Good luck, and don't breathe too deeply." As for you, if you survive the next 24 hours shrunk, you'll win the prize. I let out a sigh of relief, thinking this will just be a minor inconvenience, until I turned to meet the stare of my now wide-eyed cat. Written in Dread by GrimmInDarkness. Piper was born into a family of detectives. When each member of the Starling family comes of age, coordinates appear on their wrists, leading them to their first case. It seemed unusual to Piper until she turned 16 and numbers directing her to the Gibraltar Point Lighthouse appeared. She knew the story behind this lighthouse. Its first keeper, Jean-Paul Remeur, had been murdered there in 1815 by local soldiers. As to why he had been murdered, there were two versions. One saying John sold the soldiers diluted liquor, and when finding out they had been cheated, they went back for revenge. Another tells that he was serving the soldiers at his home, and when he decided to close up shop early, a deadly fight ensued. Nothing was concrete on how he met his true end, though it would make one hell of a ghost story if it was haunted. Piper knew that the murder from the 1800s wouldn't be what she was meant to solve. She hoped so, at least. That morning, she packed her hiking gear, got into her 1972 AMC Gremlin, and headed towards her destination. As for the curse or gift of the starlings, Piper wasn't sure when it started or why. Those who would know the answers aren't around anymore. She started out at the vast stretch of road ahead of her, listening to classic hits on the radio. Piper drummed her fingers on the steering wheel, then flicked the switch to turn right and onto the dirt road. Ahead of her was the lighthouse. She gazed at the looming building ahead of her. Piper felt the heavy weight of the situation heavy on her shoulders. Finding a safe place to park the car, Piper got out, grabbing her bag and locking the car. She trudged up the path. It was overgrown, except for a few manicured hedges lining the way, winding up to the top. Here was Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. She was sure that in its heyday, this lighthouse was a sight to behold. Now it was no longer operational. Piper took a deep breath, exhaled, her eyes scanning over her surroundings. She needed to set up camp, so Piper pushed open the heavy wooden door of the lighthouse and entered inside. It had been well preserved inside, showing it was well taken care of. Piper found a spot on the second floor and set up a pop-up tent. From here, she would be able to access the telescope to view what was all around her. Piper set everything up and began her ascent up the stairs. On the balcony was a rusty, hanging-on-for-dear-life telescope. Well, at least the lenses aren't broken, she thought to herself, lifting its neck and peering into it. Moving around, Piper spotted something out of place. It appeared that someone had dug a trench in the back of the lighthouse. Curious, she grabbed a flashlight and headed outside. Her boots crunched on dead leaves underfoot as she made her way towards the trench. There, at the bottom of it, was a pile of bodies, all in various stages of decomposition. This was a serial killer's dumping ground. Piper needed to call the police. Reaching for her phone, she paused, hearing something being dragged along the ground. Turning off her flashlight, she hid behind an old oak tree. The source of the dragging came from an individual who was dragging a tightly wrapped body. Stopping at the edge of the trench, they used their foot to kick the heavy bundle into the trench. It bounced off one of the many others which already lay at the bottom. A sickening squelch and crunch echoed out of the hole. This had to be who was dumping the bodies into the trench. Taking out a compact mirror she kept in her back pocket to fix up her makeup, Piper angled the mirror so she could see the bank above the trench. Someone dressed in all black and a mask covering their face stood there, staring down at his trench before turning on their heels and walking away. It was at a time like this Piper wished she had brought a proper weapon. The use of pepper spray and taser could give her time to run away, but not stun them long enough for authorities to arrive. Since she would be out here for a while, Piper needed to hatch a plan to immobilize the serial killer and have the police stationed close by to take the arrest. Her gut feeling told her that this was her first case, something Piper would have to solve herself. Not hearing any more movement, she made her way back to the lighthouse and shut the door behind her. Tossing and turning her sleeping bag, Piper stared up at the ceiling of her tent. She couldn't sleep. It was understandable after all. There was a hole and dead bodies in the backyard of the lighthouse. Who could sleep with something like that in their backyard? Sitting up, Piper rubbed her face and yawned, crawling out of the tent. It was time for some coffee, since she wouldn't be getting any sleep tonight. Waiting for the kettle to heat up on a mini gas stove, Piper shoveled a few spoonfuls of instant coffee and powdered cream mix into a mug. When it whistled, she took it off and poured the water into her cup, flipping off the switch. Stirring the mixture, Piper blew on the steaming liquid before taking a sip. She walked up to the window, gazing out at it. Down below, she saw the old trail leading somewhere out of sight. If Piper had to guess, it probably led to an old shed which stored tools, supplies, and firewood. A knock on the front door of the lighthouse startled her. Her heart jumped into her throat as she shakily put down her coffee mug in her hands. Piper slowly walked over to her bag and took out a taser, slowly descending the stairs. She hid the device behind her back, slowly opening the door a crack. Outside was a young man who appeared to be close to her in age. He was dressed like he had just jumped out of an 80s grunge magazine. Scrunching her nose at his taste in clothing, Piper questioned him for what he was doing here. He simply replied that he had seen a light while following a trail close by. In other words, he was nosy as to who was here. Could this be the person who Piper witnessed dumping a body earlier? And just how many of those kills were his? He gripped the door, trying to pry it out of Piper's grasp, so she put her foot and weight against the door. Again, she questioned what he was doing there. His eyes darkened, and in a low voice he responded to her that he knew she saw him. Saw what exactly? Piper played dumb, but she knew better. She just hoped that this individual would believe her. Loosening his grip on the door, he let go of it and stepped back. He watched her, hands in his pockets, his eyes dark and void of any emotion. He turned on his heels and walked down one of the trails next to the lighthouse. Piper knew that he wasn't really gone, and they was probably going around to the back. She would have to get there before he would. If Piper didn't, she was sure he'd break down the door. Somehow she felt this young man knew that Piper saw what he had been doing and was going to silence her. Quickly shuffling down the stairs, her heart hammered in her chest as the back door burst open. Piper cursed under her breath. Where could she go from here? She had to think fast before he closed in on her. As the young man stepped into the lighthouse, Piper went into the living room. Heavy, thudding footsteps followed behind her, getting close enough to grab her. He reached out to grab Piper when she remembered the taser in her pocket. Turning her body, she flipped the switch on, aiming at the young man as she pressed the button, jamming it under his ribs. The sound of crackling filled the air, and just as he was about to wrap his hands around her neck, his body jolted and shook, bringing him to his knees. Piper didn't pull the taser away, not until she knew he wouldn't be able to get up. Once he was down on the floor, she ran out the door, making a beeline for her car. Piper fumbled with the keys of the car and managed to open it, getting inside. Limping out of the house was the young man, arms crossed around his ribs as she started the engine and backed out the driveway. Her foot hit the accelerator, and she watched him using the rearview mirror. Speeding out the driveway like a bat out of hell, Piper fixed her eyes back on the road, knuckles white from gripping the steering wheel. She needed to put distance between them until she got a few miles away to call the police and her family. Piper never realized a second figure in the back seat of her car, forgetting the most important rule she had been taught: that killers don't always work alone. As I was writing down the statement of the woman filing a missing persons report, she started to break down into hysterical sobbings as she gave me the description of her daughter. I sat there in silence, not able to summon the courage to tell her we had already found the body, along with her husband alive and well, burying it. The Frost That Took My Voice by Different Pride 1245. I live in a crumbling farmhouse on the edge of a dead town, alone since my mom died 3 years ago. I cut off my sister, my friends, everyone after the funeral, thinking solitude would numb the guilt of not being there when Mom slipped away. But last month, the silence turned suffocating. I woke up every night, my chest hollow, starving for something I couldn't name. Mom's laugh, a touch, a whisper. Then the frost came. It started with footprints, small, child-sized, etched in ice like frozen tears, trailing from my porch into the barren fields. I followed them one dusk, the air biting my skin until they vanished near a gnarled oak. A sob echoed, sharp and broken, like a child's wail stretching across decades. I ran back, locking the door, but the cold seeped in through the walls. That night, I found my mom's photo on my bed, one I had burned years ago to forget her sunken eyes in the hospital. It was soaked, streaked with salt, and the air reeked of decay. I saw it through the window, a gray skeletal wraith, its bones jolting like broken branches, its eyes black voids weeping frost. Its mouth trembled, splitting open to reveal a maw of jagged ice. It pressed against the glass, the pain cracking, and I felt my loneliness surge, a scream trapped in my throat. Memories of Mom's last breath, my sister's unanswered calls, they clawed at my skull, draining me until I was a husk. It came inside 3 nights ago. I was in bed, paralyzed as the door shattered. The sob became a shriek, rattling my bones. The wraith loomed over me, its frost-rimmed fingers dripping tear-shaped ice. "Empty," it hissed, its voice a child's but ancient, hollowed by starvation. Its hand plunged into my chest, not through my skin, but deeper, into my soul. My ribs burned with cold, my lungs seized, and I felt my voice, my scream, being ripped away, replaced by an aching void. Frost spread across my skin, blistering, peeling, leaving raw, tear-shaped scars. I saw Mom's face in the wraith's eyes, her mouth open in a silent wail, fading into darkness. My sister's voice echoed, pleading, but it dissolved into the wrath's mow. It fed on every regret, every moment I pushed away, until I was nothing but hungry. I tried to fight, claw at its arms, but my fingers shattered against its icy flesh, blood freezing mid-drop. It leaned closer, its breath a blizzard, and whispered, "You'll never speak again." My voice tightened, my voice gone, stolen by its frost. I don't know how I survived. It left at dawn, the floor slicked with frosty tears, my chest a map of scarred frozen wounds. I can't scream, can't cry, my voice is a hollow rasp, my breath is a wheeze of ice. I called my sister with a text, my hands shaking, and I'm leaving today. But the frost is back, creeping up my window, and the sob is louder, closer. My scars burn, splitting open, weeping frost. I see it in the fields, waiting, its maw open, hungry for what's left of me. If you ever lost someone, let the world slip away. Check your windows, look for frost shaped like tears. It's out there, and it'll take more than your voice. Don't be shy, I said as I motioned my 3-year-old son to smile in front of the webcam for his medical examination. As my son forced a smile, the online doctor examining him tipped me $3,000, commenting that he was perfectly healthy and his organs would fetch a good price on the black market. St. Angela's Protocol Ward by TwistedTallTeller. Welcome letter. Found crumpled in locker number 13. To our newest night shift attendant, welcome to the protocol ward at St. Angela's Containment Hospital. Your role is simple. Follow the rules, do not deviate, do not improvise, do not ask questions. Below are non-negotiable protocols. Memorize them, your life depends on it. Protocols for night shift, St. Angela's Containment Hospital. 1. The hospital opens to only staff after 8 p.m. If you see anyone at the main doors after that, do not let them in, even if they're in uniform, especially if they're in uniform. 2. The patients in room 101 through 106 are not to be treated as human. Do not respond to their voices. They know how to mimic your loved ones. 3. Room 107 is to remain locked. It does not have a patient. It does not need to eat. If you hear knocking from the inside, turn on the overhead sprinklers and recite the phrase, "We return what we took. We return what we took." 4. Every night at 2 a.m. the lights will flicker. This is normal. Do not look at the security monitors during this time. 5. If you hear weeping from the vents, leave the room immediately. This sound lasts approximately 4 minutes. Anyone who listens too long will start crying too, and they won't stop. 6. You will receive medication trays at 3 a.m. One tray will be different. You'll know which. Slide it under room 106 door. Do not let them hand it back. 7. The intercom may announce code gold. If so, you must immediately go to the basement, close the door, and do not speak, no matter who calls your name. 8. If you survive until dawn, wait for the day shift nurse to knock twice, pause, then once more. Any other sequence is a trick. Stay inside until the knock is correct. Notes scribed on the back in red ink. The rules are changing. Room 107 is humming now. We think it's learning. If you see the girl in the yellow gown, don't let her smile. Last time, we lost 3 nurses. Additional to protocol, issued after Incident 42B. 9. If you pass the East Wing supply closet and the door is open, close it without looking inside. Do not listen to what it says about your past. 10. The janitor on floor 3 doesn't work here. He hasn't since 1997. If you see him mopping the same spot over and over, leave him be. If he turns to face you, run. 11.
sometimes your reflection won't copy you exactly. If it smiles first, smash the mirror immediately and file an Incident 7B report. 12. Room 111 doesn't appear on any map, but sometimes it's there. If you find it, leave a candy wrapped outside the door and walk away. Do not open it, not even a peek. 13. If a patient begins to float 6 inches above the bed during rounds, notify security and immediately write down the phrase, "The anchor holds," on their chart. Do not speak to them until they return to the mattress. 14. You may find extra fingers in your latex gloves. Do not remove them. Do not acknowledge them. They are counting something, and it's imperative that they don't finish. 15. If you lose track of time, check the clock in the break room. If the second hand is ticking counterclockwise, your shift has already ended. Leave through the morgue immediately without stopping. 16. The elevator may stop at a floor labeled beneath. This is not part of the hospital. Do not step out. Press the emergency button until it moves again.
"They have a child working as a miner," shouted one of the miners when he heard a child calling for help deep in the mine. "I'm not a miner, I'm a lure," said the child after the miners found him. Bed 313 by dorimarcosta. Hi everyone from the channel, my name is Lewis. Well, I'd rather not reveal my full name. I've been a subscriber for a while, and today I decided to share a story that still gives me chills every time I think about it. I'm a registered nurse now and currently work at a private hospital that's part of a big network in my city. But back in 2014, I was just a nursing technician. I had just finished my vocational course, full of hope, resume in hand, walking all over town, dropping off paper whenever I could, clinics, private hospitals, tiny corner offices. When I had called for a temporary position at Santa Ifigenia Public Hospital, I almost cried. It was an emergency contract, nothing solid, but with a night shift bonus, it was enough to pay rent on the small room I shared with a friend, buy food, and hold out until something better came along. They started me on Monday in May. They put me on 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, the dreaded overnight. I was what they called a support tech, the go-to guy for everything. I run from one floor to another with medications, adjusting oxygen levels, help transfer patients, change IV bags, check vitals. I didn't stop. The hospital was old, built with 70s concrete, but it was still standing thanks to a handful of professionals who worked miracles with what little they had. The first few nights were exhausting, but uneventful. Nights in a hospital are long. You start recognizing the sounds, the beeping of heart monitors, the echo of footsteps on cold tile floors, the muffled snores of patients in the hall. Sometimes the silence is so loud it feels like it's screaming. And like every old building, this hospital had its creepy spots, creaky doors, flickering lights, footsteps where no one was walking. You just learn to ignore it. Comes with the job. But since my first night, something bothered me. The annex. Behind the main hospital, separated by a covered walkway, was a smaller building. A 2-story annex that used to house the old men's ward, some observation beds, and the old pharmacy. All of that is now on the hospital's top floor. The annex had been shut down for about 2 years after a fire. No one went in there anymore. The gate was sealed with thick chains and 2 heavy padlocks. The sign, already faded by rain and time, read, "Annex closed off."
It was weird thinking that in a public hospital where space is always tight, a whole wing had been abandoned for so long. But even closed off, it never felt truly deactivated. At night, especially after 3 a.m., it was common to hear creaky noises from that side. The janitor said it was the concrete settling, but I passed by and hear something else. A bed being dragged, a nurse call bell going off, other sounds. One night as I walked in from another shift, I looked at the rusted iron doors of the annex and got this strange feeling something was behind it. It gave me chills. In the main ward, the system showed all the beds, occupied, free, being cleaned, etc. And that night, at exactly 3:13 a.m., a new admission popped up. Jos Ellis de Alamode, bed 313. But our hospital didn't have a bed 313. The last one was 309. I deleted the name, thought it was a system glitch, but the next night, same time, it came back. I took out my phone, snapped a photo of the screen, and went straight to the night supervisor. She looked at it and took a deep breath.
Just let it go, Lewis. It's happened before.
What do you mean?
We've already filed a report with IT. They say it's an old bug, a database issue. Sometimes it pulls data from wings that don't exist anymore. Just an old echo in the system.
Do you know who Jorge Aladonamare is? I asked. She looked at me. Took a while to answer.
It's a public hospital, kid. What do you think?
The third time it happened, the intercom rang. It was the front desk extension, but the screen said extension 313. I answered. Silence. Then labored breathing, like someone out of breath. I hung up immediately. Next shift, while sipping weak coffee in the cafeteria, old Mr. Silvio, the night security guard, started to talk to me. He got me staring at the hospital floor plan on the tiled wall.
You're curious about the annex, huh?
He asked, straight to the point. I nodded a bit sheepishly. He sighed.
That place caught fire one night 2 years ago. Started on the top floor, the men's ward. They said it was electrical short in one of the rooms, but no one really believes that. 2 patients died, and the weird thing was the condition of the bodies.
Silvio looked down, as if reliving the moment, then continued.
I was here that night, one of the first on the scene when the alarm went off. The smell of smoke was intense. The fire had already taken most of the men's ward. The extinguishers weren't enough. Firefighters arrived quickly, managed to get almost everyone out. All but 2 patients.
He paused, gripping his paper cup tightly.
When the firefighters found the bodies, one of them was untouched. The bed was intact. No soot, no burns. Not even the sheets were scorched. But the smell, it was like burnt death. Like the fire had happened inside him.
I tried to laugh, call it an urban legend, but I choked when I heard the name of the dead, Horace Ellis de la Morda. Silvio squinted like he was watching the scene all over again. His cup trembled, spilling coffee all over the side. He didn't even notice.
I saw him,
he whispered, like afraid anyone else might hear.
Not back then. Months later, maybe 5 months after the fire.
I sat up straight, trying to act skeptical, but my skin was crawling. I was walking down the main hallway, coming back from X-ray. Another quiet night, just the hum of the AC. Then I saw someone walking slowly, his back to me, wearing a hospital gown, thinning hair, barefoot, looked lost. Silvio looked sideways, like watching the hallway again. I called out, "Sir, are you okay?" Nothing. He just kept walking. But the way he moved, it was weird. Like his feet touched the floor but didn't really step. Like he was gliding. "You followed him?" I asked. He nodded. "When I turned the corner, he was gone, but the floor was stained, like someone had just come from a coal furnace. Footprints, and they ended in the middle of the hallway, just stopped. And that smell," he wrinkled his nose, "the same as during that fire, smoke and burnt flesh." I stayed quiet, a bitter taste raising in my throat. Silvio set his cup down, like he had said what he needed to. One time, I saw it with my own eyes. It was a night like any other. The system beeped, bed 313 lit up on the screen, and I decided to go to the annex. I left my station, walking down the cold corridor. Outside, the sky was clear, no wind, but the hall to the annex felt freezing. The gate was ajar, the chain on the floor, no padlock. I pushed it open slowly. The building fully lit inside, like it was working. Fluorescent lights buzzing. The hallways were clean, like freshly mopped. The smell, that old hospital smell. The hospital annex elevator was working. The panel lit up. I went up to the top floor. The doors opened with a dry creak. In the middle of the hallway stood a hospital bed with a sheet over it. I walked towards it. My whole body shook with each step. On the ID tag, it read bed 313. The sheet moved, like someone was breathing underneath it. With a trembling hand, I pulled it off in one go. No one there, but the mattress was sunken, like someone had been lying there. Footprints on the floor led to the wall and vanished. I ran to the elevator. It wouldn't move. I was stuck there for almost 10 minutes. The bed stood between me and the stairs. I didn't dare cross. When I finally made it down, I went straight to the main ward, grabbed my stuff, turned in my badge, and quit right there, hands still shaking. The supervisor didn't even ask why. She just looked at me and nodded, like she already knew. In the following days, I tried to forget, told myself it was exhaustion, lack of sleep, the pressure of night shifts. But something kept bothering me, nagging in the back of my mind. What really happened in that hospital all those years ago? I did some digging on my own, looked through public archives, and found an old newspaper article. The fire at the hospital killed 2 men. One of them was Horace Ellis de la Mende. The other was Silvio da Costa. I just stared at the screen for a minute. Same face, even the badge was visible, pinned to the burned uniform in the photo. Same security outfit, same tired eyes. I had spent months talking to a ghost. A dead man, a lingering echo of what remained in the old wing of the hospital.
I kept my eyes on the husband because the wife's eyes always fearfully darted to him before she answered any questions that involved her injuries. I did not expect to see the husband's eyes darting in the same manner towards the raggedy doll sitting on the fireplace mantel. The Cradle Witch by Different Pride 1245. In the 1940s, Nurse Evelyn ran the baby ward of a small hospital where she was known for her cold efficiency. Behind her polished exterior, however, she harbored a dark secret. Over the years, many infants had died under her care. More than 40. Though the exact number was never known. She selected the weakest, the most vulnerable children, and behind closed doors, they mysteriously perished. The mothers left heartbroken, but no one dared question the perfect nurse. That was until Charlotte arrived, a powerful woman, rich and influential. Charlotte gave birth at the hospital, and like the others, her child was placed under Evelyn's care. But this time, things went terribly wrong. The baby, once healthy, grew sick and died within days. Charlotte, devastated, knew there was something sinister at play. She was not a woman to accept silence. As she cradled her dead child, Charlotte whispered a curse, ancient and filled with agony of every mother who had lost a child to Evelyn's hands. You will feel every moment of suffering, every ounce of guilt, every tear shed for the children you have taken. All of it will be yours forever. The curse tore through the air, rendering the fabric of reality itself. A dark force surged through the tear, and in that instant, Evelyn was transformed. The pain, guilt, and agony of every life she had stolen flooded into her, both the mother's suffering and the spirits of the children, and twisted her into something unnatural. She became the Cradle Witch. Her body warped, her skin pale and taut, her eyes sunken deep into her skull. The cries of the dead echoed in her ears, their sorrow mangled with her own. She was consumed by the curse, yet she found a strange sense of purpose in it. She now hunted those who carried unbearable shame and guilt, those trapped in their own sorrow. She would end their suffering by claiming it for herself. And so the Cradle Witch roams, a creature of agony and vengeance, offering dark release to those who are drowning in their own remorse. In her arms, the lost find peace, but it is the peace that no one truly seeks. Wake up! I screamed at the sleeping forms of my wife and daughter, but my panicked cries fell on deaf ears. Standing next to my sobbing wife as we watched our home burn to the ground, I reached with a sad smile for the little hand of the small form manifesting between us, and prepared to guide my family to the light I've been ignoring for years. Rules for Picking Up a Hitchhiker on Route 37 by DoButterfly152. Hello. I've seen many terrible things happen to those good Samaritans who pick up hitchhikers on Route 37. I've decided to write these rules to ensure that the number of atrocities on the route at least decreases. 1. Generally, don't pick up hitchhikers on Route 37, or any route for that matter. You never know what they might do. If you feel like you really want to pick someone up for some ungodly reason, read the rest of these rules. 2. If someone's wearing an orange jumpsuit or black and white stripes, refrain from stopping. They're most likely an escaped convict from the prison nearby. 3. If someone is holding a sign saying blank city or bust, do not pick them up. The nearest major city is over 500 miles away. 4. If you see a very beautiful woman on the side of the road in a purple dress, she was the first victim of hitchhikers on this road. Proceed to drive forward. 5. If someone is running into the middle of the road covered in blood, waving you down, increase your speed and do not refrain from running them over if they jump in your way. It's either already too late for them, or it's not their blood that covers them. 6. The only person you should ever consider stopping for is Will. He's a local hitchhiker and likes to just sit in other people's cars and talk to them. 6A. Will be recognized by his off-brand Crocs, tattered denim jeans, a baggy brown turtleneck, and a gnarled baseball cap with a lighter patch where an emblem once sat. But it's now ripped off. He'll offer you a smile and a casual thumb to signal he wants to ride with you. 6B. It may be beneficial to pick up Will. As the other hitchhikers see him, they might back down and wait to purge the next car. 7. If you're driving down Route 37 at night and see a line of 20 people holding hands and blocking both lanes, immediately throw your car into reverse and drive until you're off Route 37. It's better than angering them. I think that's all the anomalies that have occurred on this road. If you encounter any others, please be sure to amend your list accordingly. Some anomalies only happen to certain people. Good luck. Back when I was a naive elementary school teacher whose biggest fear was school shooters, I felt confident that I would give my life to protect the kids. Now, as I usher my little survivors to safety, zombies feasting on the one I failed to save, I recognize the act of self-sacrifice is a privilege that I can't afford. They can't survive this world without me. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. If you have a story you'd like me to narrate, whether true or fictional, there are 3 ways to send it my way. The links are down below, including the ones to my socials and to my other YouTube channel. I know that it's kind of weird that I upload on a Wednesday, but I really wanted to go back to doing true stories, and well, you get 1 true story and 1 fictional, so I thought I'd do another compilation to even it up exactly where I would like it to be. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, please subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And of course, I would absolutely love a comment. Tell me what you thought, which one was your favorite, and what kind of stories you like in the future. If you're listening on the podcast and are able to, please leave a review or, of course, a comment. If you'd like to help this channel and podcast grow, please share it with anyone who might enjoy it. It helps quite a bit. If you'd like to help in a more financial way, like the lovely people on screen right now, I do have Patreon and memberships where for $1 a month you get early access and a few other bonuses. But if you'd like to do more of a one-time thing, I do have PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and Super Thanks. But as always, guys, thank you for watching and listening. It always has and always will mean the world to me. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.